Book 23. Argument. Funeral games in honor of Patroclus. 280. Achilles and the Myrmidons do honors to the body of Patroclus. After the funeral feast he retires to the seashore, where, falling asleep, the ghost of his friend appears to him and demands the rites of burial. The next morning the soldiers are sent with mules and wagons to fetch wood for the pyre, the funeral procession, and the offering their hair to the dead. Achilles sacrifices several animals, and lastly 12 Trojan captives at the pile, then sets fire to it. He pays libations to the winds, which, at the instance of Iris, rise and raise the flames. When the pile has burned all night, they gather the bones, place them in an urn of gold, and raise the tomb. Achilles institutes the funeral games. The chariot race, the fight of the Caestus, the wrestling, the foot race, the single combat, the discus, the shooting with arrows, the darting, the javelin, the various descriptions of which and the various success of the several antagonists make the greatest part of the book. In this book ends the 30th day. The night following, the ghost of Patroclus appears to Achilles. The 31st day is employed in felling the timber for the pile, the 32nd in burning it, and the 33rd in the games. The scene is generally on the seashore. Thus humbled in the dust, the pensive train, through the sad city mourned her hero slain. The body soiled with dust and black with gore, lies on broad Hellespont's resounding shore. The Grecians seek their ships, and clear the strand, all but the martial Myrmidonian band. These yet assembled great Achilles holds, and the stern purpose of his mind unfolds. Not yet, my brave companions of the war, release your smoking coursers from the car, but, with his chariot each in order led, perform due honors to Patroclus dead. Ere yet from rest or food we seek relief, some rites remain, to glut our rage of grief. The troops obeyed, and thrice in order led. 281. Achilles first, their coursers round the dead, and thrice their sorrows and laments renew. Tears bathe their arms, and tears the sands bedew. For such a warrior Thetis aids their woe, melts their strong hearts, and bids their eyes to flow. But chief Pelides, thick succeeding sighs, burst from his heart, and torrents from his eyes. His slaughtering hands, yet red with blood, he laid on his dead friend's cold breast, and thus he said, "All hail Patroclus, let thy honored ghost hear, and rejoice on Pluto's dreary coast. Behold, Achilles' promise is complete, the bloody Hector stretched before thy feet. Lo, to the dogs his carcass I resign, and 12 sad victims of the Trojan line, sacred to vengeance, instant shall expire, their lives effused around thy funeral pyre." Gloomy he said, and horrible to view, before the bier the bleeding Hector threw, prone on the dust, the Myrmidons around, unbraced their armor, and the steeds unbound. All to Achilles' sable ship repair, frequent and full the genial feast to share. Now from the well-fed swine black smokes aspire, the bristly victims hissing o'er the fire. The huge ox bellowing falls with feebler cries. Expires the goat, the sheep in silence dies. Around the hero's prostrate body flowed, in one promiscuous stream, the reeking blood. And now a band of Argive monarchs brings the glorious victor to the King of Kings. From his dead friend the pensive warrior went, with steps unwilling to the regal tent. The attending heralds, as by office bound, with kindled flames the tripod vase surround. To cleanse his conquering hands from hostile gore, they urged in vain. The chief refused, and swore frowny face. 282. No drop shall touch me, by almighty Jove, the first and greatest of the gods above, till on the pyre I place thee, till I rear the grassy mound, and clip thy sacred hair. Some ease at least those pious rites may give, and soothe my sorrows, while I bear to live. However reluctant as I am, I stay, and share your feast. But with the dawn of day, O King of men, it claims thy royal care, that Greece the warrior's funeral pile prepare, and bid the forests fall. Such rites are paid to heroes slumbering in eternal shade. Then, when his earthly part shall mount in fire, Let the leagued squadrons to their posts retire. He spoke. They hear him and the word obey. The rage of hunger and of thirst allay, then ease in sleep the labors of the day. But great Pelides, stretched along the shore, where, dashed on rocks the broken billows roar, lies inly groaning, while on either hand, the martial Myrmidons confusedly stand. Along the grass his languid members fall, tired with his chase around the Trojan wall. Hushed by the murmurs of the rolling deep, at length he sinks in the soft arms of sleep. When lo, the shade, before his closing eyes, of sad Patroclus rose, or seemed to rise. In the same robe he living wore he came, in stature, voice, and pleasing look, the same. The form familiar hovered o'er his head. And sleeps Achilles? Thus the phantom said. Sleeps my Achilles, his Patroclus dead? Living, I seemed his dearest, tenderest care, but now forgot, I wander in the air. Let my pale corse the rites of burial know, and give me entrance in the realms below. Till then the spirit finds no resting place, but here and there the unbodied spectres chase. The vagrant dead around the dark abode, forbid to cross the irremeable flood. Now give thy hand, for to the farther shore, when once we pass, the soul returns no more. When once the last funereal flames ascend, no more shall meet Achilles and his friend. No more our thoughts to those we loved make known, or quit the dearest, to converse alone. Me fate has severed from the sons of earth, the fate foredoomed that waited from my birth. Thee too it waits, before the Trojan wall. Even great and godlike thou art doomed to fall. Here then, and as in fate and love we join, suffer that my bones may rest with thine. Together have we lived, together bred, one house received us and one table fed. That golden urn, thy goddess mother gave, may mix our ashes in one common grave. And is it thou? He answers, to my sight, 283. Once more return'st thou from the realms of night? O more than brother, think each office paid, whatever can rest a discontented shade. But grant one last embrace, unhappy boy, afford at least that melancholy joy. He said, and with his longing arms essayed, in vain to grasp the visionary shade. Like a thin smoke he sees the spirit fly, 284, and hears a feeble, lamentable cry. Confused he wakes, amazement breaks the bands of golden sleep, and starting from the sands, pensive he muses with uplifted hands. 'Tis true, 'tis certain, man though dead, retains part of himself. The immortal mind remains, the form subsists without the body's aid. Aerial semblance, and an empty shade. This night my friend, so late in battle lost, stood at my side, a pensive, plaintive ghost. Even now familiar as in life he came. Alas, how different, yet how like the same. Thus while he spoke, each eye grew big with tears, and now the rosy-fingered morn appears, shows every mournful face with tears o'erspread, and glares on the pale visage of the dead. But Agamemnon, as the rites demand, with mules and wagons sends a chosen band, to load the timber and the pile to rear, a charge consigned to Marion's faithful care. With proper instruments they take the road, axes to cut and ropes to sling the load. First march the heavy mules, securely slow, o'er hills, o'er dales, o'er crags, o'er rocks they go, duat bat, jumping, high o'er the shrubs of the rough ground, rattle the clattering cars and the shocked axles bound. But when arrived at Ida's spreading woods, 286, fair Ida, watered with descending floods, loud sounds the axe, redoubling strokes on strokes. On all sides round the forest hurls her oaks. Headlong, deep echoing groan the thickets brown, then rustling, crackling, crashing, thunder down. The wood the Grecians cleave, prepared to burn, and the slow mules the same rough road return. The sturdy woodmen equal burdens bore. Such charge was given them, to the sandy shore. There on the spot which great Achilles showed, They eased their shoulders and disposed the load, circling around the place where times to come shall view Patroclus and Achilles' tomb. The hero bids his martial troops appear, high on their cars in all the pomp of war. Each in refulgent arms his limbs attires, all mount their chariots, combatants and squires. The chariots first proceed, a shining train, then clouds of foot that smoke along the plain. Next these the melancholy band appear, amidst lay dead Patroclus on the bier. O'er all the course their scattered locks they throw. Achilles next, oppressed with mighty woe, supporting with his hands the hero's head, bends o'er the extended body of the dead. Patroclus decent on the appointed ground, they place and heap the sylvan pile around. But great Achilles stands apart in prayer, and from his head divides the yellow hair, those curling locks which from his youth he vowed. 287. And sacred grew, to Spercheius' honored flood. Then sighing, to the deep his locks he cast, and rolled his eyes around the watery waste. Spercheius, whose waves in mazy errors lost, delightful roll along my native coast, to whom we vainly vowed, at our return, these locks to fall, and hecatombs to burn, full 50 rams to bleed in sacrifice, where to the day thy silver fountains rise, and where in shade of consecrated bowers, thy altars stand, perfumed with native flowers. So vowed my father, but he vowed in vain. No more Achilles sees his native plain. In that vain hope these hairs no longer grow, Patroclus bears them to the shades below. Thus o'er Patroclus while the hero prayed, on his cold hand the sacred lock he laid. Once more afresh the Grecian sorrows flow, and now the sun had set upon their woe. But to the king of men thus spoke the chief. Enough, Atrides, give the troops relief, permit the mourning legions to retire, and let the chiefs alone attend the pyre. The pious care be ours, the dead to burn. He said, the people to their ships return, while those deputed to inter the slain, heap with a rising pyramid the plain. 288. 100 foot in length, 100 wide, the growing structure spreads on every side. High on the top the manly corse they lay, and well-fed sheep and sable oxen slay. Achilles covered with their fat the dead, and the piled victims round the body spread. Then jars of honey, and of fragrant oil, suspends around, low bending o'er the pile. For sprightly coursers with a deadly groan, pour forth their lives, and on the pyre are thrown. Of 9 large dogs, domestic at his board, fall 2 selected to attend their lord. Then last of all, and horrible to tell, sad sacrifice, 12 Trojan captives fell. 289. On these the rage of fire victorious praise, involves and joins them in one common blaze. Smeared with the bloody rites, he stands on high, and calls the spirit with a dreadful cry. Frowny face. 290. All hail Patroclus, let thy vengeful ghost hear and exult on Pluto's dreary coast. Behold Achilles' promise fully paid, 12 Trojan heroes offered to thy shade. But heavier fates on Hector's corse attend, saved from the flames, for hungry dogs to rend. So spake he threatening, but the gods made vain his threat, and guard inviolate the slain. Celestial Venus hovered o'er his head, and roseate unguents, heavenly fragrance, shed. She watched him all the night and all the day, and drove the bloodhounds from their destined prey. Nor sacred Phoebus less employed his care. He poured around a veil of gathered air, and kept the nerves undried, the flesh entire, against the solar beam and Syrian fire. Nor yet the pile, where dead Patroclus lies, smokes, nor as yet the sullen flames arise. But, fast beside, Achilles stood in prayer, invoked the gods whose spirit moves the air, and victims promised and libations cast, to gentle Zephyr and the boreal blast. He called the aerial powers along the skies, to breathe, and whisper to the fires to rise. The winged Iris heard the heroes' call, and instant hastened to their airy hall. where in old Zephyr's open courts on high sat all the blustering brethren of the sky. She shone amidst them, on her painted bow. The rocky pavement glittered with the show. All from the banquet rise, and each invites the various goddess to partake the rites. Not so, the dame replied, I haste to go to sacred ocean and the floods below. Even now our solemn hecatombs attend, and heaven is feasting on the world's green end. With righteous Ethiops, uncorrupted train, far on the extremest limits of the main. But Peleus' son entreats, with sacrifice, the western spirit and the north to rise. Let on Patroclus' pile your blast be driven, and bear the blazing honors high to heaven. Swift as the word she vanished from their view. Swift as the word the winds tumultuous flew. Forth burst the stormy band with thundering roar, and heaps on heaps the clouds are tossed before. To the wide main then stooping from the skies, the heaving deeps in watery mountains rise. Troy feels the blast along her shaking walls, till on the pile the gathered tempest falls. The structure crackles in the roaring fires, and all the night the plenteous flame aspires. All night Achilles hails Patroclus' soul, with large libations from the golden bowl. As a poor father, helpless and undone, mourns o'er the ashes of an only son, takes a sad pleasure the last bones to burn, and pours in tears, ere yet they close the urn. So stayed Achilles, circling round the shore, so watched the flames, till now they flame no more. 'Twas when, emerging through the shades of night, the morning planet told the approach of light, and, fast behind, Aurora's warmer ray, o'er the broad ocean poured the golden day. Then sank the blaze, the pile no longer burned, and to their caves the whistling winds returned. Across the Thracian seas their course they bore, the ruffled seas beneath their passage roar. Then parting from the pile he ceased to weep, and sank to quiet in the embrace of sleep, exhausted with his grief. Meanwhile the crowd of thronging Grecians round Achilles stood. The tumult waked him. From his eyes he shook, unwilling slumber, and the chiefs bespoke, Ye kings and princes of the Achaean name, first let us quench the yet remaining flame with sable wine. Then, as the rites direct, the heroes' bones with careful view select. Apart and easy to be known they lie, amidst the heap, and obvious to the eye. The rest around the margin will be seen, promiscuous, steeds and immolated men. These wrapped in double cauls of fat, prepare, and in the golden vase dispose with care. There let them rest with decent honor laid, till I shall follow to the infernal shade. Meantime erect the tomb with pious hands, a common structure on the humble sands. Hereafter Greece some nobler work may raise, and late posterity record our praise. The Greeks obey, where yet the embers glow. Wide o'er the pile the sable wine they throw, and deep subsides the ashy heap below. Next the white bones his sad companions place, with tears collected, in the golden vase. The sacred relics to the tent they bore, the urn a veil of linen covered o'er. That done, they bid the sepulchre aspire, and cast the deep foundations round the pyre. High in the midst they heap the swelling bed of rising earth, memorial of the dead. The swarming populace the chief detains, and leads amidst a wide extent of plains. There place them round. Then from the ships proceeds a train of oxen, mules, and stately steeds, vases and tripods, for the funeral games. Resplendent brass, and more resplendent dames. First stood the prizes to reward the force of rapid racers in the dusty course. A woman for the first, in beauty's bloom, skilled in the needle and the laboring loom, and a large vase, where 2 bright handles rise, of 20 measures its capacious size. The second victor claims a mare unbroke, big with a mule, unknowing of the yoke. The third, a charger yet untouched by flame, for ample measures held the shining frame. 2 golden talents for the fourth were placed, an ample double bowl contents the last. These in fair order ranged upon the plain. The hero, rising, thus addressed the train. Behold the prizes, valiant Greeks, decreed, to the brave rulers of the racing steed, prizes which none beside ourself could gain, should our immortal coursers take the plain. A race unrivaled, which from ocean's god, Peleus received, and on his son bestowed. But this no time our vigor to display, nor suit with them the games of this sad day. Lost is Patroclus now that wont to deck their flowing manes, and sleek their glossy neck. Sad, as they shared in human grief they stand, and trail those graceful honors on the sand. Let others for the noble task prepare, who trust the courser and the flying car. Fired at his word the rival racers rise, but far the first Eumelus hopes the prize, famed though Pieria for the fleetest breed, and skilled to manage the high-bounding steed. With equal ardor bold Tydides swelled, the steeds of Tros beneath his yoke compelled, which late obeyed the Dardan chief's command, when scarce a god redeemed him from his hand. Then Menelaus his pod Argus brings, and the famed courser of the King of Kings, whom rich Echepolus, more rich than brave, to scape the wars to Agamemnon gave, e'th her name, at home to end his days, base wealth preferring to eternal praise. Next him Antilochus demands the course, with beating heart, and cheers his Pylian horse. Experienced Nestor gives his son the reins, directs his judgment, and his heat restrains, nor idly warns the hoary sire, nor hears the prudent son with unattending ears. My son, though youthful ardor fire thy breast, the gods have loved thee, and with arts have blessed. Neptune and Jove on thee conferred the skill, swift round the goal to turn the flying wheel. To guide thy conduct little precept needs, but slow, and past their vigor, are my steeds. Fear not thy rivals, though for swiftness known. Compare those rivals' judgment and thy own. It is not strength but art obtains the prize, and to be swift is less than to be wise. 'Tis more by art than force of numerous strokes. The dexterous woodman shapes the stubborn oaks. By art the pilot through the boiling deep, and howling tempest, steers the fearless ship, and 'tis the artist wins the glorious course, not those who trust in chariots and in horse. In vain, unskillful to the goal they strive, and short or wide, the ungoverned courser drive, while with sure skill though with inferior steeds, the knowing racer to his end proceeds. Fixed on the goal his eye foreruns the course, his hand unerring steers the steady horse, and now contracts or now extends the rein, observing still the foremost on the plain. Mark then the goal, 'tis easy to be found, yon aged trunk, a cubit from the ground, of some once stately oak the last remains, or hardy fir, unperished with the rains, enclosed with stones, conspicuous from afar, and round, a circle for the wheeling car. Some tomb perhaps of old, the dead to grace, or then, as now, the limit of a race. Bear close to this and warily proceed, a little bending to the left-hand steed, but urge the right and give him all the reins, while thy strict hand his fellow's head restrains, and turns him short, till, doubling as they roll, the wheels round naves appear to brush the goal. Yet, not to break the car or lame the horse, clear of the stony heap direct the course, lest through incaution failing thou mayst be a joy to others, a reproach to me. So shalt thou pass the goal, secure of mind, and leave unskillful swiftness far behind. Though thy fierce rival drove the matchless steed, which bore Adrastus, of celestial breed, or the famed race through all the regions known, that whirled the car of proud Laomedon. Thus, not unsaid, the much-advising sage concludes, then sat, stiff with unwieldy age. Next bold Marians was seen to rise, the last but not least ardent for the prize. They mount their seats, the lots their place dispose. Rolled in his helmet these Achilles throws. Young Nestor leads the race. Eumelus then, and next the brother of the king of men. Thy lot, Marians, the fourth was cast, and far the bravest Diomed was last. They stand in order an impatient train, Pelides points the barrier on the plain, and sends before old Phoenix to the place, to mark the racers and to judge the race. At once the coursers from the barrier bound, the lifted scourges all at once resound. Their heart, their eyes, their voice, they send before, and up the champaign thunder from the shore. Thick, where they drive, the dusty clouds arise, and the lost courser in the whirlwind flies. Loose on their shoulders the long manes reclined, float in their speed, and dance upon the wind. The smoking chariots, rapid as they bound, now seem to touch the sky and now the ground. While hot for fame and conquest all their care, each o'er his flying courser hung in air. Erect with ardor, poised upon the rein, they pant, they stretch, they shout along the plain. Now the last compass fetched around the goal. At the near prize each gathers all his soul. Each burns with double hope, with double pain, tears up the shore, and thunders toward the main. First flew Eumelus on Phaeacian steeds, with those of Tros bold Diomed succeeds. Close on Eumelus' back they puff the wind, and seem just mounting on his car behind. Full on his neck he feels the sultry breeze, and, hovering o'er, their stretching shadows sees. Then had he lost or left a doubtful prize, but angry Phoebus to Tydides flies, strikes from his hand the scourge, and renders vain his matchless horses' labor on the plain. Rage fills his eye with anguish to survey, snatched from his hope the glories of the day. The fraud celestial palace sees with pain, springs to her night, and gives the scourge again, and fills his steeds with vigor. At a stroke, she breaks his rival's chariot from the yoke. No more their way the startled horses held. The car reversed came rattling on the field. Shot headlong from his seat, beside the wheel, prone on the dust the unhappy master fell. His battered face and elbows strike the ground. Nose, mouth, and front one undistinguished wound. Grief stops his voice. A torrent drowns his eyes. Before him far the glad Tydides flies. Minerva's spirit drives his matchless pace, and crowns him victor of the labored race. The next, though distant, Menelaus succeeds, while thus young Nestor animates his steeds. Now, my generous pair, exert your force, not that we hope to match Tydides' horse, since great Minerva wings their rapid way, and gives their lord the honors of the day. But reach Atrides, shall his mare outgo your swiftness, vanquished by a female foe? Through your neglect if lagging on the plain, the last ignoble gift be all we gain. No more shall Nestor's hand your food supply. The old man's fury rises, and ye die. Haste then, yon narrow road, before our sight, presents the occasion, could we use it right. Thus he, the coursers at their master's threat, with quicker steps the sounding champaign beat. And now Antilochus with nice survey, observes the compass of the hollow way. 'Twas where, by force of wintry torrents torn, fast by the road a precipice was worn. Here, where but one could pass, to shun the throng, the Spartan hero's chariot smoked along. Close up the venturous youth resolves to keep, still edging near, and bears him toward the steep. Atrides, trembling, casts his eye below, and wonders at the rashness of his foe. Hold, stay your steeds. What madness thus to ride this narrow way? Take larger field, he cried, or both must fall. Atrides cried in vain. He flies more fast, and throws up all the rein. Far as an able arm the disc can send, when youthful rivals their full force extend. So far, Antilochus, thy chariot flew before the king. He, cautious, backward drew, his horse compelled, foreboding in his fears the rattling ruin of the clashing cars, the floundering coursers rolling on the plain, and conquest lost through frantic haste to gain. But thus upbraids his rival as he flies. Go, furious youth, ungenerous and unwise, go, but expect not I'll the prize resign. Add perjury to fraud, and make it thine. Then to his steeds with all his force he cries, be swift, be vigorous, and regain the prize. Your rivals, destitute of youthful force, with fainting knees shall labor in the course, and yield the glory yours. The steeds obey. Already at their heels they wing their way, and seem already to retrieve the day. Meantime the Grecians in a ring beheld the coursers bounding o'er the dusty field. The first who marked them was the Cretan king. High on a rising ground, above the ring, the monarch sat, from whence with sure survey he well observed the chief who led the way, and heard from far his animating cries, and saw the foremost steed with sharpened eyes, on whose broad front a blaze of shining white, like the full moon, stood obvious to the sight. He saw, and rising to the Greeks begun, "Are yonder horse discerned by me alone? Or can ye all another chief survey, and other steeds than lately led the way? Those, though the swiftest by some god withheld, lie sure disabled in the middle field. For, since the goal they doubled round the plain, I search to find them, but I search in vain. Perchance the reins forsook the driver's hand, and, turned too short, he tumbled on the strand, shot from the chariot, while his coursers stray, with frantic fury from the destined way. Rise then some other and inform my sight, for these dim eyes, perhaps, discern not right. Yet sure he seems to judge by shape and air, the great Aetolian chief, renowned in war. Old man, Oileus rashly thus replies, thy tongue too hastily confers the prize of those who view the course, nor sharpest-eyed, nor youngest yet the readiest to decide. Eumelus steeds, high bounding in the chase, still as at first unrivaled lead the race. I well discern him, as he shakes the rein, and hear his shouts victorious o'er the plain. Thus he, Idomeneus, incensed, rejoined, barbarous of words, and arrogant of mind, contentious prince of all the Greeks beside, the last in merit as the first in pride. To vile reproach what answer can we make? A goblet or a tripod let us stake, and be the king the judge. The most unwise will learn their rashness when they pay the price. He said, and Ajax, by mad passion born, stern had replied, fierce scorn enhancing scorn, to fell extremes. But Thetis' godlike son, awful amidst them rose, and thus begun. Forbear, ye chiefs, reproachful to contend. Much would ye blame should others thus offend. And lo, the approaching steeds your contest end. No sooner had he spoke, but thundering near, drives through a stream of dust the charioteer. High o'er his head the circling lash he wields. His bounding horses scarcely touch the fields. His car amidst the dusty whirlwind rolled, bright with the mingled blaze of tin and gold, refulgent through the cloud. No eye could find the track his flying wheels had left behind, and the fierce coursers urged their rapid pace. So swift it seemed a flight and not a race. Now victor at the goal tide stands, quits his bright car, and springs upon the sands. From the hot steeds the sweaty torrents stream. The well-plied whip is hung athwart the beam. With joy brave Sthenelus receives the prize, the tripod vase, and dame with radiant eyes. These to the ships his train triumphant leads. The chief himself unyokes the panting steeds. Young Nestor follows, who by art not force, o'erpassed Atrides, second in the course. Behind Atrides urged the race more near than to the courser in his swift career. The following car just touching with his heel, and brushing with his tail the whirling wheel. Such and so narrow now the space between the rivals late so distant on the green. So soon swift Eve her lost ground regained. One length, one moment had the race obtained. Marion pursued, at greater distance still, with tardier coursers and inferior skill. Last came Admetus, thy unhappy son. Slow dragged the steeds his battered chariot on. Achilles saw, and pitying thus begun, behold, the man whose matchless art surpassed the sons of Greece, the ablest yet the last. Fortune denies, but justice bids us pay. Since great Tydides bears the first away, to him the second honors of the day. The Greeks consent with loud applauding cries, and then Eumelus had received the prize. But youthful Nestor, jealous of his fame, the award opposes and asserts his claim. Think not, he cries, I tamely will resign, O Peleus' son, the mare so justly mine. What if the gods, the skillful to confound, have thrown the horse and horseman to the ground? Perhaps he sought not heaven by sacrifice, and vows omitted forfeited the prize. If yet, distinction to thy friend to show, and please a soul desirous to bestow, some gift must grace Eumelus, view thy store, of beauteous handmaids, steeds, and shining ore, an ample present let him thence receive, and Greece shall praise thy generous thirst to give. But this my prize I never shall forgo, this who but touches warriors, is my foe. Thus spake the youth, nor did his words offend. Pleased with the well-turned flattery of a friend, Achilles smiled. The gift proposed, he cried, Antilochus, we shall ourself provide. With plates of brass the corslet covered o'er, the same renowned Asteropaeus wore, whose glittering margins raised with silver shine. No vulgar gift, Eumelus, shall be thine, he said. Automedon at his command, the corslet brought and gave it to his hand. Distinguished by his friend, his bosom glows with generous joy. Then Menelaus rose, the herald placed the scepter in his hands, and stilled the clamor of the shouting bands. Not without cause incensed at Nestor's son, and inly grieving, thus the king begun. The praise of wisdom, in thy youth obtained, an act so rash Antilochus has stained. Robbed of my glory and my just reward, to you, O Grecians, be my wrong declared, so not a leader shall our conduct blame, or judge me envious of a rival's fame. But shall not we, ourselves, the truth maintain? What needs appealing in a fact so plain? What Greek shall blame me, if I bid thee rise, and vindicate by oath the ill-gotten prize? Rise if thou darest, before thy chariot stand, the driving scourge high lifted in thy hand, and touch thy steeds, and swear thy whole intent was but to conquer, not to circumvent. Swear by that God whose liquid arms surround the globe, and whose dread earthquakes heave the ground. The prudent chief with calm attention heard, then mildly thus, excuse if youth have erred, superior as thou art, forgive the offense, nor I thy equal or in years or sense. Thou know'st the errors of unripened age, weak are its counsels, headlong is its rage. The prize I quit, if thou thy wrath resign, the mare or aught thou ask'st, be freely thine. Ere I become, from thy dear friendship torn, hateful to thee, and to the gods forsworn. So spoke Antilochus, and at the word, the mare contested to the king restored. Joy swells his soul, as when the vernal grain lifts the green ear above the springing plain. The fields their vegetable life renew, and laugh and glitter with the morning dew. Such joy the Spartan's shining face o'erspread, and lifted his gay heart, while thus he said, Still may our souls, O generous youth, agree. 'Tis now Atride's turn to yield to thee. Rash heat perhaps a moment might control, not break, the settled temper of thy soul. Not but, my friend, 'tis still the wiser way, to waive contention with superior sway. For how few who should like thee offend, like thee have talents to regain the friend, to plead indulgence, and thy fault atone. Suffice thy father's merit and thy own. Generous alike for me the sire and son, have greatly suffered, and have greatly done. I yield, that all may know my soul can bend, nor is my pride preferred before my friend. He said, and pleased his passion to command, resigned the courser to Noman's hand, friend of the youthful chief. Himself content, the shining charger to his vessel sent. The golden talents Marion next obtained, the fifth reward, the double bowl, remained. Achilles this to reverend Nestor bears, and thus the purpose of his gift declares. Accept thou this, O sacred sire, he said, in dear memorial of Patroclus dead. Dead and forever lost Patroclus lies, forever snatched from our desiring eyes. Take thou this token of a grateful heart, though 'Tis not thine to hurl the distant dart, the quoit to toss, the ponderous mace to wield, or urge the race or wrestle on the field. Thy pristine vigor age has overthrown, but left the glory of the past thy own. He said, and placed the goblet at his side. With joy the venerable king replied, Wisely and well, my son, thy words have proved a senior honored and a friend beloved. Too true it is, deserted of my strength, these withered arms and limbs have failed at length. Oh, had I now that force I felt of yore, known through Buprasium and the Pylian shore, victorious then in every solemn game, ordained to Amarance's mighty name, the brave Epeans gave my glory way, Aetolians, Pylians, all resigned the day. I quelled Clytomedes in fights of hand, and backward hurled Ancaeus on the sand, surpassed Iphiclus in the swift career, Phyleus and Polydorus with the spear. The sons of Actor won the prize of horse, but won by numbers, not by art or force. For the famed twins, impatient to survey, prize after prize by Nestor borne away, sprung to their car, and with united pains, one lashed the coursers, while one ruled the reins. Such once I was, now to these tasks succeeds a younger race that emulate our deeds. I yield, alas, to age who must not yield, though once the foremost hero of the field. Go thou, my son, by generous friendship led, with martial honors decorate the dead. While pleased I take the gift thy hands present, pledge of benevolence and kind intent, rejoiced of all the numerous Greeks to see, not one but honors sacred age and me, those due distinctions thou so well canst pay. May the just gods return another day. Proud of the gift, thus spake the full of days. Achilles heard him, prouder of the praise. The prizes next are ordered to the field, for the bold champions who the Caestus wield. A stately mule, as yet by toils unbroke, of 6 years' age, unconscious of the yoke, is to the circus led, and firmly bound. Next stands a goblet massy, large, and round. Achilles rising, thus, let Greece excite, 2 heroes equal to this hardy fight, who dare the foe with lifted arms provoke, and rush beneath the long descending stroke. On whom Apollo shall the palm bestow, and whom the Greeks supreme by conquest know. This mule his dauntless labors shall repay. The vanquished bear the massy bowl away. This dreadful combat great Epeus chose, wink with a frown 291. High o'er the crowd, enormous bulk, he rose, and seized the beast, and thus began to say, Stand forth some man, to bear the bowl away, price of his ruin, for who dares deny this mule my right, the undoubted victor the first. Others, 'tis owned, in fields of battle shine, but the first honors of this fight are mine. For who excels in all? Then let my foe draw near, but first his certain fortune know. Secure this hand shall his whole frame confound, mash all his bones and all his body pound. So let his friends be nigh, a needful train, to heave the battered carcass off the plain. The giant spoke, and in a stupid gaze, the host beheld him, silent with amaze. 'Twas thou, Euryalus, who durst aspire to meet his might, and emulate thy sire, the great Mecisteus, who in days of yore, in Theban games the noblest trophy bore. The games ordained dead Oedipus to grace, and singly vanquish the Cadmean race. Him great Tydides urges to contend, warm with the hopes of conquest for his friend. Apicius with the cincture girds him round, and to his wrist the gloves of death are bound. Amid the circle now each champion stands, and poises high in air his iron hands. With clashing gauntlets now they fiercely close, their crackling jaws re-echo to the blows, and painful sweat from all their members flows. At length Epeus dealt a weighty blow, full on the cheek of his unwary foe. Beneath that ponderous arm's resistless sway, down dropped he, nerveless, and extended lay, as a large fish when winds and waters roar, by some huge billow dashed against the shore, lies panting, not less battered with his wound, The bleeding hero pants upon the ground. To rear his fallen foe, the victor lends, scornful, his hand, and gives him to his friends, whose arms support him, reeling through the throng, and dragging his disabled legs along. Nodding, his head hangs down his shoulder o'er. His mouth and nostrils pour the clotted gore wink, with a frown 292. Wrapped round in mists he lies, and lost to thought. His friends receive the bowl too dearly bought. The third bold game Achilles next demands, and calls the wrestlers to the level sands. A massy tripod for the victor lies, of twice 6 oxen its reputed price. And next, the loser's spirits to restore, a female captive valued but at 4. Scarce did the chief the vigorous strife propose, when tower-like Ajax and Ulysses rose. Amid the ring each nervous rival stands, embracing rigid with implicit hands. Close locked above, their heads and arms are mixed. Below, their planted feet at distance fixed, like 2 strong rafters which the builder forms, proof to the wintry winds and howling storms. Their tops connected but at wider space. Fixed on the center stands their solid base. Now to the grasp each manly body bends. The humid sweat from every pore descends. Their bones resound with blows. Sides, shoulders, thighs swell to each gripe, and bloody tumors rise. Nor could Ulysses, for his art renowned, earn the strength of Ajax on the ground. Nor could the strength of Ajax overthrow the watchful caution of his artful foe. While the long strife even tired the lookers on, thus to Ulysses spoke great Telamon. Or let me lift thee, chief, or lift thou me. Prove we our force, and Jove the rest decree, he said, and straining heaved him off the ground. With matchless strength, that time Ulysses found, the strength to evade and where the nerves combine. His ankle struck, the giant fell supine. Ulysses, following, on his bosom lies. Shouts of applause run rattling through the skies. Ajax to lift Ulysses' next essays. He barely stirred him, but he could not raise. His knee locked fast, the foe's attempt denied, and grappling close they tumbled side by side. Defiled with honorable dust they roll, still breathing strife, and unsubdued of soul. Again they rage, again to combat rise, when great Achilles thus divides the prize. Your noble vigor, O my friends, restrain, nor weary out your generous strength in vain. Ye both have won. Let others who excel now prove that prowess you have proved so well. The hero's words the willing chiefs obey, from their tired bodies wipe the dust away, and, clothed anew, the following games survey. And now succeed the gifts ordained to grace the youths contending in the rapid race. A silver urn that full 6 measures held, by none in weight or workmanship excelled. Sidonian artists taught the frame to shine, elaborate, with artifice divine, whence Tyrian sailors did the prize transport, and gave to Thoas at the Lemnian port. From him descended, good Aeneas heired, the glorious gift, and, for Lycaon spared, to brave Patroclus gave the rich reward. Now the same hero's funeral rites to grace, it stands the prize of swiftness in the race. A well-fed ox was for the second placed, and half a talent must content the last. Achilles rising then bespoke the train, who hope the palm of swiftness to obtain. Stand forth, and bear these prizes from the plain. The hero said, and starting from his place, Oilean Ajax rises to the race. Ulysses next, and he whose speed surpassed his youthful equals, Nestor's son, the last. Ranged in a line the ready racers stand. Pelides points the barrier with his hand. All start at once. Oileus led the race. The next Ulysses, measuring pace with pace. Behind him, diligently close, he sped, as closely following as the running thread. The spindle follows, and displays the charms of the fair spinster's breast and moving arms. Graceful in motion thus, his foe he plies, and treads each footstep ere the dust can rise. His glowing breath upon his shoulders plays. The admiring Greeks loud acclamations raise. To him they give their wishes, hearts, and eyes, and send their souls before him as he flies. Now 3 times turned in prospect of the goal, the panting chief to Pallas lifts his soul. Assist, O goddess! Thus in thought he prayed, and present at his thought descends the maid. Buoyed by her heavenly force, he seems to swim, and feels a pinion lifting every limb. All fierce, and ready now the prize to gain, unhappy Ajax stumbles on the plain. Erderndy by Pallas, where the slippery shore was clogged with slimy dung and mingled gore. The self-same place beside Patroclus' pyre, where late the slaughtered victims fed the fire. Besmeared with filth, and blotted o'er with clay, obscene to sight, the rueful racer lay. The well-fed bull, the second prize, he shared, and left the urn Ulysses' rich reward. Then, grasping by the horn the mighty beast, the baffled hero thus the Greeks addressed. Accursed fate, the conquest I forgo. A mortal I, a goddess was my foe. She urged her favorite on the rapid way, and Pallas, not Ulysses, won the day. Thus sourly wailed he, sputtering dirt and gore. A burst of laughter echoed through the shore. Antilochus, more humorous than the rest, takes the last prize and takes it with a jest. Why with our wiser elders should we strive? The gods still love them and they always thrive. You see, to Ajax I must yield the prize, he to Ulysses, still more aged and wise. A green old age unconscious of decays, that proves the hero born in better days. Behold his vigor in this active race. Achilles only boasts a swifter pace. For who can match Achilles? He who can, must yet be more than hero, more than man. The effect succeeds the speech. Pylades cries, thy artful praise deserves a better prize. Nor Greece in vain shall hear thy friend extolled. Receive a talent of the purest gold. The youth departs content. The host admire. The son of Nestor, worthy of his sire. Next these a buckler, spear, and helm he brings. Cast on the plain, the brazen burden rings. Arms which of late divine Sarpedon wore, and great Patroclus in short triumph bore. Stand forth the bravest of our host, he cries. Whoever dares deserve so rich a prize. Now grace the lists before our army's sight, and sheathed in steel provoke his foe to fight. Who first the jointed armor shall explore, and stain his rival's mail with issuing gore. The sword Astropaeus possessed of old, a Thracian blade, distinct with studs of gold, shall pay the stroke, and grace the striker's side. These arms in common let the chiefs divide. For each brave champion, when the combat ends, a sumptuous banquet at our tents attends. Fierce at the word uprose great Tydeus' son, and the huge bulk of Ajax Telamon. Clad in refulgent steel on either hand, the dreadful chiefs amid the circle stand. Lowering they meet, tremendous to the sight. Each Argive bosom beats with fierce delight. Opposed in arms not long they idly stood, but thrice they closed, and thrice the charge renewed. A furious pass the spear of Ajax made, through the broad shield, but at the corslet stayed. Not thus the foe, his javelin aimed above, the buckler's margin at the neck he drove. But Greece, now trembling for her hero's life, bade share the honors, and surcease the strife. Yet still the victor's due Tydides gains. With him the sword and studded belt remains. Then hurled the hero, thundering on the ground, a mass of iron, an enormous round, whose weight and size the circling Greeks admire, rude from the furnace and but shaped by fire. This mighty quoit Aetion wont to rear, and from his whirling arm dismiss in air. The giant by Achilles slain he stowed among his spoils this memorable load. For this he bids those nervous artists vie, that teach the disk to sound along the sky. Let him, whose might can hurl this bowl, arise, who farthest hurls it, take it as his prize, if he be one enriched with large domain, of downs for flocks and arable for grain, small stock of iron needs that man provide. His hinds and swains whole years shall be supplied. From hence, nor ask the neighboring city's aid, for plowshares, wheels, and all the rural trade. Stern Polypides stepped before the throng, and great Leonteus, more than mortal strong, whose force with rival forces to oppose, uprose great Ajax. Up Epeus rose. Each stood in order. First Epeus threw. High o'er the wondering crowds the whirling circle flew. Leonteus next a little space surpassed. And third the strength of godlike Ajax cast. O'er both their marks it flew, till fiercely flung. From Polypides' arm the discus sung. Far as a swain his whirling sheephook throws, that distant falls among the grazing cows. So past them all the rapid circle flies. His friends, while loud applauses shake the skies, with force conjoined heave off the weighty prize. Those who in skillful archery contend, he next invites the twanging bow to bend, and twice 10 axes casts amidst the round, 10 double-edged, and 10 that singly wound. The mast, which late a first-rate galley bore, the hero fixes in the sandy shore. To the tall top a milk-white dove they tie, the trembling mark at which their arrows fly. Whose weapon strikes yon fluttering bird, shall bear these two-edged axes terrible in war. The single, he whose shaft divides the cord. He said. Experienced Marion took the word, and skillful Teucer, in the helm they threw, their lots inscribed, and forth the ladder flew. Swift from the string the sounding arrow flies, but flies unblessed, no grateful sacrifice, no firstling lambs, unheedful, didst thou vow, to Phoebus, patron of the shaft and bow. For this, thy well-aimed arrow turned aside, erred from the dove, yet cut the cord that tied. Adown the mainmast fell the parted string, and the free bird to heaven displays her wing. Sea, shores, and skies with loud applause resound, and Marion eager meditates the wound. He takes the bow, directs the shaft above, and following with his eye the soaring dove, implores the god to speed it through the skies, with vows of firstling lambs, and grateful sacrifice. The dove, in airy circles as she wheels, amid the clouds the piercing arrow feels. Quite through and through the point its passage found, and at his feet fell bloody to the ground. The wounded bird, ere yet she breathed her last, with flagging wings alighted on the mast. A moment hung, and spread her pinions there, then sudden dropped, and left her life in air. From the pleased crowd new peals of thunder rise, and to the ships brave Marion bears the prize. To close the funeral games Achilles last, a massy spear amid the circle placed, and ample charger of unsullied frame, with flowers high-wrought, not blackened yet by flame. For these he bids the heroes prove their art, whose dexterous skill directs the flying dart. Here too great Marion hopes the noble prize, nor here disdained the king of men to rise. With joy Pelides saw the honor paid, rose to the monarch, and respectful said, Thee first in virtue as in power supreme, O King of nations, all thy Greeks proclaim, in every martial game thy worth attest, and know thee both their greatest and their best. Take then the prize, but let brave Marion bear this beamy javelin in thy brother's war. Pleased from the hero's lips his praise to hear, the king to Marion gives the brazen spear, but, set apart for sacred use, commands the glittering charger to Talthybius' hands. Book 24. Argument. The redemption of the body of Hector. The gods deliberate about the redemption of Hector's body. Jupiter sends Thetis to Achilles, to dispose him for the restoring it, and Iris to Priam, to encourage him to go in person and treat for it. The old king, notwithstanding the remonstrances of his queen, makes ready for the journey, to which he is encouraged by an omen from Jupiter. He sets forth in his chariot, with a wagon loaded with presents, under the charge of Idaeus the herald. Mercury descends in the shape of a young man, and conducts him to the pavilion of Achilles. Their conversation on the way. Priam finds Achilles at his table, casts himself at his feet, and begs for the body of his son. Achilles, moved with compassion, grants his request, detains him one night in his tent, and the next morning sends him home with the body. The Trojans run out to meet him. The lamentations of Andromache, Hecuba, and Helen, with the solemnities of the funeral. The time of 12 days is employed in this book, while the body of Hector lies in the tent of Achilles, and as many more are spent in the truce allowed for his interment. The scene is partly in Achilles' camp and partly in Troy. Now from the finished games the Grecian band seek their black ships, and clear the crowded strand. All stretched at ease the genial banquet share, and pleasing slumbers quiet all their care. Not so Achilles, he, to grief resigned, his friend's dear image present to his mind, takes his sad couch, more unobserved to weep, nor tastes the gifts of all-composing sleep. Restless he rolled around his weary bed, and all his soul on his Patroclus fed. The form so pleasing, and the heart so kind, that youthful vigor and that manly mind. What toils they shared, what martial works they wrought, what seas they measured, and what fields they fought. All passed before him in remembrance dear. Thought follows thought, and tear succeeds to tear. And now supine, now prone, the hero lay, now shifts his side, impatient for the day. Then starting up, disconsolate he goes, wide on the lonely beach to vent his woes. There as the solitary mourner raves, the ruddy morning rises o'er the waves. Soon as it rose, his furious steeds he joined. The chariot flies and Hector trails behind. And thrice, Patroclus, round thy monument, was Hector dragged, then hurried to the tent. There sleep at last o'ercomes the hero's eyes, while foul in dust the unhonored carcass lies, but not deserted by the pitying skies. For Phoebus watched it with superior care, preserved from gaping wounds and tainting air, and, ignominious as it swept the field, spread o'er the sacred corse his golden shield. All heaven was moved, and Hermes willed to go by stealth to snatch him from the insulting foe. But Neptune this and Pallas this denies, and to unrelenting empress of the skies, e'er since that day implacable to Troy, what time young Paris, simple shepherd boy, won by destructive lust, reward obscene, their charms rejected for the Cyprian queen. But when the 10th celestial morning broke, to heaven assembled, thus Apollo spoke, unpitying powers, how oft each holy fane has Hector tinged with blood of victims slain? And can ye still his cold remains pursue? Still grudge his body to the Trojans' view? Deny to consort, mother, son, and sire, the last sad honors of a funeral fire? Is then the dire Achilles all your care? That iron heart inflexibly severe, a lion, not a man who slaughters wide, in strength of rage and impotence of pride, who hastes to murder with a savage joy, invades around, and breathes but to destroy. Shame is not of his soul, nor understood, the greatest evil and the greatest good. Still for one loss he rages unresigned, repugnant to the lot of all mankind. To lose a friend, a brother, or a son, heaven dooms each mortal, and its will is done. A while they sorrow, then dismiss their care. Fate gives the wound, and man is born to bear. But this insatiate, the commission given, by fate exceeds, and tempts the wrath of heaven. Lo, how his rage dishonest drags along Hector's dead earth, insensible of wrong. Brave though he be, yet by no reason awed, he violates the laws of man and God. If equal honors by the partial skies are doomed both heroes, Juno thus replies, if Thetis' son must no distinction know, then hear, ye gods, the patron of the bow. But Hector only boasts a mortal claim, his birth deriving from a mortal dame. Achilles, of your own ethereal race, springs from a goddess by a man's embrace, a goddess by ourself to Peleus given, a man divine and chosen friend of heaven. To grace those nuptials, from the bright abode, yourselves were present, where this minstrel god, well pleased to share the feast, amid the choir, stood proud to him, and tune his youthful lyre. Then thus the thunderer checks the imperial dame, let not thy wrath the court of heaven inflame. Their merits, nor their honors are the same, but mine, and every god's peculiar grace. Hector deserves of all the Trojan race, still on our shrines his grateful offerings lay. the only honors men to gods can pay, nor ever from our smoking altar ceased, the pure libation and the holy feast. Howe'er by stealth to snatch the corse away, we will not, Thetis guards it night and day, but haste and summon to our courts above, the azure queen, let her persuasion move, her furious son from Priam to receive, the proffered ransom, and the corse to leave. He added not, and Iris from the skies, swift as a whirlwind, on the message flies, meteorous the face of ocean sweeps, refulgent gliding o'er the sable deeps, between where Samos wide his forest spreads, and rocky Imbrus lifts its pointed heads. Down plunged the maid. The parted waves resound winky face. She plunged and instant shot the dark profound, as bearing death in the fallacious bait. From the bent angle sinks the leaden weight. So passed the goddess through the closing wave, where Thetis sorrowed in her secret cave. There placed amidst her melancholy train the blue-haired sisters of the sacred main. Pensive she sat, revolving fates to come, and wept her godlike son's approaching doom. Then thus the goddess of the painted bow: "Arise, O Thetis, from thy seats below. 'Tis Jove that calls." And why, the dame replies, calls Jove his Thetis to the hated skies? Sad object as I am for heavenly sight, may my sorrows ever shun the light. Howe'er, be heaven's almighty sire obeyed. She spake, and veiled her head in sable shade, which, flowing long, her graceful person clad, and forth she paced, majestically sad. Then through the world of waters they repair, the way fair Iris led to upper air. The deeps dividing, o'er the coast they rise, and touch with momentary flight the skies. There in the lightnings blaze the sire they found, and all the gods in shining synod round. Thetis approached with anguish in her face. Minerva rising, gave the mourner place. Even Juno sought her sorrows to console, and offered from her hand the nectar bowl. She tasted and resigned it. Then began the sacred sire of gods and mortal man: "Thou comest, fair Thetis, but with grief o'ercast. Maternal sorrows, long, long to last. Suffice, we know, and we partake thy cares. But yield to fate, and hear what Jove declares. 9 days are past since all the court above, in Hector's cause, have moved the ear of Jove. 'Twas voted Hermes from his godlike foe by stealth should bear him, but we willed not so. We will, thy son himself the course restore, and to his conquest add this glory more. Then hie thee to him, and our mandate bear. Tell him he tempts the wrath of heaven too far, nor let him more our anger if he dread. Vent his mad vengeance on the sacred dead, but yield to ransom and the father's prayer. The mournful father, Iris shall prepare, with gifts to sue, and offer to his hands whatever his honor asks, or heart demands. His word the silver-footed queen attends, and from Olympus' snowy tops descends. Arrived, she heard the voice of loud lament, and echoing groans that shook the lofty tent. His friends prepare the victim and dispose repast unheeded, while he vents his woes. The goddess seats her by her pensive son. She pressed his hand, and tender thus begun: "How long, unhappy, shall thy sorrows flow, and thy heart waste with life-consuming woe, mindless of food, or love, whose pleasing reign soothes weary life, and softens human pain? O snatch the moments yet within thy power, not long to live, indulge the amorous hour. Lo, Jove himself, for Jove's command I bear, forbids to tempt the wrath of heaven too far. No longer then, his fury if thou dread, detain the relics of great Hector dead, nor vent on senseless earth thy vengeance vain, but yield to ransom, and restore the slain. To whom Achilles be the ransom given, and we submit, since such the will of heaven." While thus they communed from the Olympian bowers, Jove orders Iris to the Trojan towers. "Haste, winged goddess, to the sacred town, and urge her monarch to redeem his son. Alone the Ilian ramparts let him leave, and bear what stern Achilles may receive. Alone, for so we will no Trojan near, except to place the dead with decent care. Some aged herald, who with gentle hand may the slow mules and funeral car command. Nor let him death, nor let him danger dread, safe through the foe by our protection led. Him Hermes to Achilles shall convey, guard of his life and partner of his way. Fierce as he is, Achilles' self shall spare his age, nor touch one venerable hair. Some thought there must be in a soul so brave, some sense of duty, some desire to save. Then down her bow the winged Iris drives, and swift at Priam's mournful court arrives, where the sad sons beside their father's throne sat bathed in tears, and answered groan with groan. And all amidst them lay the hoary sire, sad scene of woe, his face his wrapped attire, concealed from sight, with frantic hands he spread a shower of ashes o'er his neck and head. From room to room his pensive daughters roam, whose shrieks and clamors fill the vaulted dome, mindful of those who late their pride and joy lie pale and breathless round the fields of Troy, before the King Jove's messenger appears, and thus in whispers greets his trembling ears. Fear not, O father, no ill news I bear. From Jove I come, Jove makes thee still his care. For Hector's sake these walls he bids thee leave, and bear what stern Achilles may receive. Alone, for so he wills, no Trojan near, except to place the dead with decent care. Some aged herald, who with gentle hand may the slow mules and funeral car command. Nor shalt thou death, nor shalt thou danger dread, safe through the foe by his protection led. Thee Hermes to Pelides shall convey, guard of thy life and partner of thy way. Fierce as he is, Achilles' self shall spare thy age, nor touch one venerable hair. Some thought there must be in a soul so brave, some sense of duty, some desire to save. She spoke and vanished. Priam bids prepare his gentle mules and harness to the car. There, for the gifts a polished casket lay. His pious sons the king's command obey. Then passed the monarch to his bridal room, where cedar beams the lofty roof's perfume, and where the treasures of his empire lay. Then called his queen, and thus began to say, Unhappy consort of a king distressed, partake the troubles of thy husband's breast. I saw descend the messenger of Jove, who bids me try Achilles' mind to move, forsake these ramparts and with gifts obtain the corse of Hector at yon navy slain. Tell me thy thought, my heart impels to go through hostile camps, and bears me to the foe. The hoary monarch thus her piercing cries, sad Hecuba renews and then replies, Ah, whither wanders thy distempered mind, and where the prudence now that awed mankind? Through Phrygia once and foreign regions known, now all confused, distracted, overthrown, singly to pass through hosts of foes, to face, O heart of steel, the murderer of thy race, to view that deathful eye and wander o'er those hands yet red with Hector's noble gore. Alas, my lord, he knows not how to spare, and what his mercy, thy slain sons declare. So brave, so many fallen, to claim his rage. Vain were thy dignity, and vain thy age. No, pent in this sad palace, let us give to grief the wretched days we have to live. Still for Hector let our sorrows flow, born to his own, and to his parents' woe. Doomed from the hour his luckless life begun, to dogs, to vultures, and to Peleus' son. Oh, in his dearest blood might I allay my rage, and these barbarities repay. For could Hector merit thus, whose breath expired not meanly in unactive death? He poured his latest blood in manly fight, and fell a hero in his country's right. Seek not to stay me, nor my soul affright. With words of omen like a bird of night, replied unmoved the venerable man Winkyface. 'Tis heaven commands me, and you urge in vain. Had any mortal voice the injunction laid, nor augur, priest, nor seer had been obeyed. A present goddess brought the high command, I heard her, and the word shall stand. I go, ye gods, obedient to your call. If in yon camp your powers have doomed my fall, content, by the same hand let me expire. Add to the slaughtered son the wretched sire. One cold embrace at least may be allowed, and my last tears flow mingled with his blood. From forth his open stores, this said, he drew 12 costly carpets of refulgent hue, as many vests, as many mantles told, and 12 fair veils, and garments stiff with gold. 2 tripods next, and twice 2 chargers shine, with 10 pure talents from the richest mine. And last a large well-labored bowl had place, the pledge of treaties once with friendly Thrace. Seemed all too mean the stores he could employ, for one last look to buy him back to Troy. Lo! The sad father, frantic with his pain, around him furious drives his menial train. In vain each slave with duteous care attends, each office hurts him and each face offends. What make ye here, officious crowds? He cries. Hence, nor obtrude your anguish on my eyes. Have ye no griefs at home to fix ye there? Am I the only object of despair? Am I become my people's common show? Set up by Jove your spectacle of woe? No, you must feel him too. Yourselves must fall. The same stern God to ruin gives you all. Nor is great Hector lost by me alone. Your sole defense, your guardian power is gone. I see your blood the fields of Phrygia drown. I see the ruins of your smoking town. Oh, send me, gods, ere that sad day shall come, a willing ghost to Pluto's dreary dome. He said, and feebly drives his friends away. The sorrowing friends his frantic rage obey. Next on his sons his erring fury falls. Polites, Paris, Agathon he calls. His threats Deiphobus and Dios hear. Hippothous, Pammon, Helene's the seer, and generous Antiphon, for yet these 9 survived, sad relics of his numerous line. Inglorious sons of an unhappy sire, why did not all in Hector's cause expire? Wretch that I am, my bravest offspring slain. You, the disgrace of Priam's house, remain. Mestor the brave, renowned in ranks of war, with Troilus, dreadful on his rushing car. 293. And last great Hector, more than man divine. For sure he seemed not of terrestrial line. All those relentless Mars untimely slew, and left me these, a soft and servile crew, whose days the feast and wanton dance employ, gluttons and flatterers, the contempt of Troy. Why teach ye not my rapid wheels to run, and speed my journey to redeem my son? The sons their father's wretched age revere, forgive his anger, and produce the car. High on the seat the cabinet they bind. The new-made car with solid beauty shined. Box was the yoke, embossed with costly pains, and hung with ringlets to receive the reins. 9 cubits long, the traces swept the ground. These to the chariot's polished pole they bound. Then fixed a ring the running reins to guide, and close beneath the gathered ends were tied. Next with the gifts the price of Hector slain. The sad attendants load the groaning wain. Last to the yoke the well-matched mules they bring, the gift of Mysia to the Trojan king. But the fair horses, long his darling care, himself received, and harnessed to his car. Grieved as he was, he not this task denied. The hoary herald helped him at his side. While careful these the gentle coursers joined, sad Hecuba approached with anxious mind. A golden bowl that foamed with fragrant wine, libation destined to the power divine. Held in her right, before the steed she stands, and thus consigns it to the monarch's hands. Take this and pour to Jove that's safe from harms. His grace restore thee to our roof and arms. Since victor of thy fears, and slighting mine, heaven, or thy soul, inspires this bold design. Pray to that God, who high on Ida's brow, surveys thy desolated realms below, his winged messenger to send from high, and lead thy way with heavenly augury. Let the strong sovereign of the plumy race tower on the right of yon ethereal space. That sign beheld, and strengthened from above, Boldly pursue the journey marked by Jove. But if the god his augury denies, suppress thy impulse, nor reject advice. 'Tis just, said Priam to the sire above, to raise our hands. For who so good as Jove? He spoke, and bade the attendant handmaid bring the purest water of the living spring. Her ready hands the ewer and basin held. Then took the golden cup his queen had filled. On the mid-pavement pours the rosy wine, uplifts his eyes, and calls the power divine. O first and greatest, heaven's imperial lord, on lofty Ida's holy hill adored, to stern Achilles now direct my ways, and teach him mercy when a father prays. If such thy will, dispatch from yonder sky thy sacred bird, celestial augury. Let the strong sovereign of the plumy race tower on the right of yon ethereal space. So shall thy suppliant, strengthened from above, fearless pursue the journey marked by Jove. Jove heard his prayer, and from the throne on high dispatched his bird, celestial augury, the swift-winged chaser of the feathered game, and known to gods by Percno's lofty name. Wide as appears some palace gate displayed, so broad his pinions stretched their ample shade, as stooping dexter with resounding wings, the imperial bird descends in airy rings. A dawn of joy in every face appears. The morning matron dries her timorous tears. Swift on his car the impatient monarch sprung. The brazen portal in his passage rung. The mules preceding draw the loaded wain, charged with the gifts. Idaeus holds the rein. The king himself his gentle steeds controls, and through surrounding friends the chariot rolls. On his slow wheels the following people wait, mourn at each step, and give him up to fate. With hands uplifted eye him as he passed, and gaze upon him as they gazed their last. Now forward fares the father on his way, through the lone fields and back to Ilion they. Great Jove beheld him as he crossed the plain, and felt the woes of miserable man. Then thus to Hermes, thou whose constant cares still succor mortals, and attend their prayers, behold an object to thy charge consigned. If ever pity touched thee for mankind, go guard the sire, the observing foe prevent, and safe conduct him to Achilles' tent. The god obeys, his golden pinions binds, 294, and mounts incumbent on the wings of winds, that high through fields of air his flight sustain, o'er the wide earth, and o'er the boundless main. Then grasps the wand that causes sleep to fly, or in soft slumbers seals the wakeful eye. Thus armed, swift Hermes steers his airy way, and stoops on Hellespont's resounding sea. A beauteous youth, majestic and divine, he seemed, fair offspring of some princely line. Now twilight veiled the glaring face of day, and clad the dusky fields in sober gray. What time the herald and the hoary king, their chariots stopping at the silver spring, that circling Elos' ancient marble flows, allowed their mules and steeds a short repose. Through the dim shade the herald first espies a man's approach, and thus to Priam cries, I mark some foes advance. O king, beware! This hard adventure claims thy utmost care. For much I fear destruction hovers nigh. Our state asks counsel. Is it best to fly, or old and helpless, at his feet to fall? Two wretched suppliants, and for mercy call. The afflicted monarch shivered with despair. Pale grew his face, and upright stood his hair. Sunk was his heart. His color went and came. A sudden trembling shook his aged frame. When Hermes, greeting, touched his royal hand, and, gentle, thus accosts with kind demand, say whither, father, when each mortal sight is sealed in sleep, thou wanderest through the night? Why roam thy mules and steeds the plains along, through Grecian foes so numerous and so strong? What couldst thou hope, should these thy treasures view, these, who with endless hate thy race pursue? For what defense, alas, couldst thou provide? Thyself not young, a weak old man thy guide? Yet suffer not thy soul to sink with dread. From me no harm shall touch thy reverend head. From Greece I'll guard thee too, for in those lines, the living image of my Father shines. Thy words, that speak benevolence of mind, are true, my son.
The godlike s'y rejoindait.
Great are my hazards, but the gods survey my steps and send thee, guardian of my way. Hail, and be blessed, for scarce of mortal kind appear thy form, thy feature, and thy mind. Nor true are all thy words, nor erring wide. The sacred messenger of heaven replied, winky face. But say, convey'st thou through the lonely plains what yet most precious of thy store remains, to lodge in safety with some friendly hand, prepared, perchance, to leave thy native land? Or fliest thou now? What hopes can Troy retain, thy matchless son, her guard and glory, slain? The king, alarmed, say what and whence thou art, who search the sorrows of a parent's heart, and know so well how godlike Hector died. Thus Priam spoke, and Hermes thus replied, You tempt me, father, and with pity touch, on this sad subject you inquire too much. Oft have these eyes that godlike Hector viewed, in glorious fight, with Grecian blood imbrued. I saw him when, like Jove, his flames he tossed on 1,000 ships, and withered half a host. I saw, but helped not. Stern Achilles' ire forbade assistance, and enjoyed the fire. For him I serve, of Myrmidonian race. One ship conveyed us from our native place. Polyctor is my sire, an honored name, old like thyself, and not unknown to fame. Of 7 his sons, by whom the lot was cast, to serve our prince it fell on me the last. To watch this quarter, my adventure falls, for with the morn the Greeks attack your walls. Sleepless they sit, impatient to engage, and scarce their rulers check their martial rage. If then thou art of stern Pelides' train, the mournful monarch thus rejoined again, tell me truly, where are laid my son's dear relics? What befalls him dead? Have dogs dismembered on the naked plains, or yet unmangled rest his cold remains? O favored of the skies! Thus answered then the power that mediates between God and men. Nor dogs nor vultures have thy Hector rent, but whole he lies, neglected in the tent. This the 12th evening since he rested there, untouched by worms, untainted by the air. Still as Aurora's ruddy beam is spread, round his friend's tomb Achilles drags the dead. Yet undisfigured or in limb or face, all fresh he lies, with every living grace. Majestical in death, no stains are found o'er all the course, and closed is every wound. Though many a wound they gave, some heavenly care, some hand divine, preserves him ever fair, or all the host of heaven to whom he led a life so grateful, still regard him dead. Thus spoke to Priam the celestial guide, and joyful thus the royal sire replied, Blessed is the man who pays the gods above the constant tribute of respect and love, those who inhabit the Olympian bower. My son forgot not in exalted power, and heaven, that every virtue bears in mind, even to the ashes of the just is kind. But thou, O generous youth, this goblet take, a pledge of gratitude for Hector's sake, and while the favoring gods our steps survey, safe to Pelides' tent conduct my way. To whom the latent god, O king, forbear to tempt my youth, for apt is youth to err. But can I, absent from my prince's sight, take gifts in secret that must shun the light? What from our master's interest thus we draw, is but a licensed theft that scapes the law. Respecting him, my soul abjures the offense, and as the crime I dread the consequence. Thee, far as Argos, pleased I could convey, guard of thy life, and partner of thy way. On thee attend, thy safety to maintain, o'er pathless forests, or the roaring main. He said, then took the chariot at a bound, and snatched the reins and whirled the lash around. Before the inspiring god that urged them on, the coursers fly with spirit not their own. And now they reached the naval walls and found the guards repasting while the bowls go round. On these the virtue of his wand he tries, and pours deep slumber on their watchful eyes. Then heaved the massy gates, removed the bars, and o'er the trenches led the rolling cars. Unseen through all the hostile camp they went, and now approached Pelides' lofty tent. On firs the roof was raised, and covered o'er with reeds collected from the marshy shore, and, fenced with palisades, a hall of state, the work of soldiers, where the hero sat. Large was the door whose well-compacted strength, a solid pine-tree barred of wondrous length. Scarce 3 strong Greeks could lift its mighty weight, but great Achilles singly closed the gate. This Hermes, such the power of gods, set wide. Then swift alighted the celestial guide, and thus revealed, "Hear, Prince, and understand. Thou owest thy guidance to no mortal hand. Hermes I am, descended from above, the king of arts, the messenger of Jove. Farewell. To shun Achilles' sight I fly. Uncommon are such favors of the sky, nor stand confessed to frail mortality. Now fearless enter, and prefer thy prayers. Adjure him by his father's silver hairs, his son, his mother, urge him to bestow whatever pity that stern heart can know." Thus having said, he vanished from his eyes, and in a moment shot into the skies. The king, confirmed from heaven, alighted there, and left his aged herald on the car. With solemn pace through various rooms he went, and found Achilles in his inner tent. There sat the hero, Alcimus the brave, and great Automedon attendance gave. These served his person at the royal feast. Around, at awful distance, stood the rest. Unseen by these, the king his entry made, and, prostrate now before Achilles laid, sudden, a venerable sight appears, embraced his knees, and bathed his hands in tears. Those direful hands his kisses pressed, embrued, even with the best, the dearest of his blood, as when a wretch who, conscious of his crime, pursued for murder, flies his native clime, just gains some frontier, breathless, pale, amazed, all gaze, all wonder. Thus Achilles gazed, thus stood the attendants stupid with surprise, all mute, yet seemed to question with their eyes. Each looked on other, none the silence broke, till thus at last the kingly suppliant spoke. "Ah, think, thou favored of the powers divine." 295. Think of thy father's age, and pity mine. In me that father's reverend image trace, those silver hairs, that venerable face, his trembling limbs, his helpless person. See, in all my equal, but in misery, yet now, perhaps, some turn of human fate expels him helpless from his peaceful state. Think, from some powerful foe thou sayest him fly, and beg protection with a feeble cry. Yet still one comfort in his soul may rise. He hears his son still lives to glad his eyes, and, hearing, still may hope a better day may send him thee to chase that foe away. No comfort to my griefs, no hopes remain. The best, the bravest, of my sons are slain. Yet what a race, ere Greece to Ilion came, the pledge of many a loved and loving dame. 19 One mother bore. Dead. All are dead. How oft, alas, has wretched Priam bled. Still one was left their loss to recompense, his father's hope, his country's last defense. Him too thy rage has slain, beneath thy steel, unhappy in his country's cause he fell. For him through hostile camps I bent my way, for him thus prostrate at thy feet I lay. Large gifts proportioned to thy wrath I bear. O hear the wretched, and the gods revere. Think of thy father, and this face behold. See him in me, as helpless and as old, though not so wretched. There he yields to me, the first of men in sovereign misery, thus forced to kneel, thus groveling to embrace the scourge and ruin of my realm and race. Suppliant my children's murderer to implore, and kiss those hands yet reeking with their gore. These words soft pity in the chief inspire, touched with the dear remembrance of his sire. Then with his hand, as prostrate still he lay, the old man's cheek he gently turned away. Now each by turns indulged the gush of woe. And now the mingled tides together flow. This low on earth, that gently bending o'er, a father one, and one a son deplore. But great Achilles different passions rend. And now his sire he mourns, and now his friend. The infectious softness through the heroes ran. One universal solemn shower began. They bore as heroes, but they felt as man. Satiate at length with unavailing woes, from the high throne divine Achilles rose. The reverend monarch by the hand he raised. On his white beard and form majestic gazed. Not unrelenting. Then serene began. With words to soothe the miserable man. Alas, what weight of anguish hast thou known, unhappy prince, thus guardless and alone, to pass through foes and thus undaunted face the man whose fury has destroyed thy race. Heaven sure has armed thee with a heart of steel, a strength proportioned to the woes you feel. Rise, then, let reason mitigate your care. To mourn avails not, man is born to bear. Such is, alas, the gods' severe decree. They are blessed and only free. Two urns by Jove's high throne have ever stood, the source of evil one, and one of good. From thence the cup of mortal man he fills. Blessings to these, to those distributes ill. To most he mingles both. The wretch decreed to taste the bad unmixed is cursed indeed. Pursued by wrongs, by meager famine driven, he wanders, outcast both of earth and heaven. The happiest taste not happiness sincere, but find the cordial draught is dashed with care. Who more than Peleus shone in wealth and power? What stars concurring blessed his natal hour? A realm, a goddess, to his wishes given, graced by the gods with all the gifts of heaven. One evil yet o'ertakes his latest day, no race succeeding to imperial sway. An only son, and he, alas, ordained to fall untimely in a foreign land. See him in Troy the pious care decline of his weak age, to live the curse of thine. Thou too, old man, hast happier days beheld, in riches once, in children once excelled. Extended Phrygia owned thy ample reign, and all fair Lesbos blissful seats contain, and all wide Hellespont's unmeasured main. But since the god his hand has pleased to turn, and fill thy measure from his bitter urn, what sees the sun, but hapless heroes' falls? War, and the blood of men, surround thy walls. What must be, must be. Bear thy lot, nor shed these unavailing sorrows o'er the dead. Thou canst not call him from the Stygian shore, but thou, alas, mayst live to suffer more. To whom the king, O favored of the skies, here let me grow to earth, since Hector lies on the bare beach deprived of obsequies. O give me Hector, to my eyes restore his course and take the gifts. I ask no more. Thou, as thou mayst, these boundless stores enjoy. Safe mayst thou sail, and turn thy wrath from Troy. So shall thy pity and forbearance give a weak old man to see the light and live. Move me no more, Achilles thus replies, while kindling anger sparkled in his eyes. Nor seek by tears my steady soul to bend. To yield thy Hector I myself intend. For know, from Jove my goddess mother came, old Ocean's daughter, silver-footed dame. Nor comest thou but by heaven, nor comest alone. Some god impels with courage not thy own. No human hand the weighty gates unbarred, nor could the boldest of our youth have dared to pass our outworks or elude the guard. Cease, lest, neglectful of high Jove's command, I show thee, king, thou treadst on hostile land. Release my knees, thy suppliant arts give o'er, and shake the purpose of my soul no more. The sire obeyed him, trembling and o'erawed. Achilles, like a lion, rushed abroad. Automedon and Alcimus attend, whom most he honored, since he lost his friend. These to unyoke the mules and horses went, and led the hoary herald to the tent. Next, heaped on high, the numerous presents bear great Hector's ransom, from the polished car. 2 splendid mantles and a carpet spread, they leave, to cover and enwrap the dead. Then call the handmaids with assistant toil, to wash the body and anoint with oil, apart from Priam, lest the unhappy sire, provoked to passion, once more rouse to ire the stern Pelides, and nor sacred age, nor Jove's command, should check the rising rage. This done, the garments o'er the corse they spread. Achilles lifts it to the funeral bed. Then, while the body on the car they laid, he groans, and calls on loved Patroclus' shade. If, in that gloom which never light must know, the deeds of mortals touch the ghosts below, O friend, forgive me, that I thus fulfill, restoring Hector, heaven's unquestioned will. The gifts the Father gave, be ever thine, to grace thy manes, and adorn thy shrine. 296, he said, and, entering, took his seat of state, where full before him reverend Priam sate, to whom, composed, the godlike chief begun. Lo, to thy prayer restored, thy breathless son, extended on the funeral couch he lies, and soon as morning paints the eastern skies, the sight is granted to thy longing eyes. But now the peaceful hours of sacred night demand reflection, and to rest invite. Nor thou, O Father, thus consumed with woe, the common cares that nourish life forego. Not thus did Niobe of form divine, apparent once, whose sorrows equalled thine. 6 youthful sons, as many blooming maids, in one sad day beheld the Stygian shades. Those by Apollo's silver bow were slain. These, Cynthia's arrows stretched upon the plain. So was her pride chastised by wrath divine, who matched her own with bright Latona's line. But to the goddess, 12 the queen enjoyed. Those boasted 12, the avenging 2 destroyed. Steeped in their blood, and in the dust outspread, 9 days, neglected, lay exposed the dead. None by to weep them, to inhume them none. For Jove had turned the nation all to stone. The gods themselves at length relenting gave the unhappy race the honors of a grave. Herself a rock, for such was heaven's high will. Through deserts wild now pours a weeping rill, where round the bed whence Achilles springs, the watery fairies dance in mazy rings. There high on Sipylus's shaggy brow, she stands, her own sad monument of woe. The rock forever lasts, the tears forever flow. Such griefs, O king, have other parents known. Remember theirs and mitigate thy own. The care of heaven thy Hector has appeared, nor shall he lie unwept and uninterred. Soon may thy aged cheeks in tears be drowned, and all the eyes of Ilion stream around. He said, and rising chose the victim ewe, with silver fleece, which his attendants slew. The limbs they sever from the reeking hide, with skill prepare them and in parts divide. Each on the coals the separate morsels lays, and, hasty, snatches from the rising blaze. With bread the glittering canisters they load, which round the board Automedon bestowed. The chief himself to each his portion placed, and each indulging shared in sweet repast. When now the rage of hunger was repressed, the wondering hero eyes his royal guest. No less the royal guest the hero eyes, his godlike aspect and majestic size. Here youthful grace and noble fire engage, and there the mild benevolence of age. Thus gazing long, the silence neither broke. A solemn scene. At length the father spoke. Permit me now, beloved of Jove, to steep my careful temples in the dew of sleep. For, since the day that numbered with the dead, my hapless son, the dust has been my bed. Soft sleep a stranger to my weeping eyes, my only food, my sorrows and my sighs. Till now, encouraged by the grace you give, I share thy banquet, and consent to live. With that, Achilles bade prepare the bed, with purple soft and shaggy carpets spread. Forth, by the flaming lights, they bend their way, and place the couches and the coverings lay. Then he, now, Father, sleep, but sleep not here. Consult thy safety, and forgive my fear, lest any Argive, at this hour awake, to ask our counsel or our orders take. approaching sudden to our open tent, perchance behold thee, and our grace prevent. Should such report thy honored person hear, the king of men the ransom might defer. But say with speed, if aught of thy desire remains unasked, what time the rites require to enter thy Hector? For so long we stay, our slaughtering arm, and bid the hosts obey. If then thy will permit, the monarch said, to finish all due honors to the dead, this of thy grace accord, to thee are known, the fears of Ilion, closed within her town, and at what distance from our walls aspire, the hills of Ide, and forests for the fire. 9 days to vent our sorrows I request, the 10th shall see the funeral and the feast, the next, to raise his monument be given, the 12th we war, if war be doomed by heaven. This thy request, replied the chief, enjoy, till then our arms suspend the fall of Troy. Then gave his hand at parting to prevent the old man's fears, and turned within the tent, where fair Briseis, bright in blooming charms, expects her hero with desiring arms. But in the porch the king and herald rest, sad dreams of care yet wandering in their breast. Now gods and men the gifts of sleep partake, industrious Hermes only was awake, the king's return revolving in his mind, to pass the ramparts and the watch to blind. The power descending hovered o'er his head. And sleep'st thou, father? Thus the vision said. Now dost thou sleep when Hector is restored, nor fear the Grecian foes, or Grecian lord. Thy presence here should stern Atrides see, thy still surviving sons may sue for thee, may offer all thy treasures yet contain, to spare thy age, and offer all in vain. Waked with the word the trembling sire arose, and raised his friend. The god before him goes, he joins the mules, directs them with his hand, and moves in silence through the hostile land. When now to Xanthus' yellow stream they drove, Xanthus, immortal progeny of Jove, the winged deity forsook their view, and in a moment to Olympus flew. Now shed Aurora round her saffron ray, sprang through the gates of light, and gave the day, charged with the mournful load, to Ilion go. The sage and king, majestically slow, Cassandra first beholds, from Ilion's spire, the sad procession of her hoary sire. Then, as the pensive pomp advanced more near, her breathless brother stretched upon the bier. A shower of tears o'erflows her beauteous eyes, alarming thus all Ilion with her cries. Turn here your steps, and here your eyes employ, ye wretched daughters, and ye sons of Troy, if e'er ye rushed in crowds, with vast delight, to hail your hero glorious from the fight. Now meet him dead, and let your sorrows flow, your common triumph, and your common woe. In thronging crowds they issue to the plains, nor man nor woman in the walls remains. In every face the self-same grief is shown, and Troy sends forth one universal groan. At Scia's gates they meet the mourning wain, hang on the wheels and grovel round the slain. The wife and mother, frantic with despair, kiss his pale cheek and rend their scattered hair. Thus wildly wailing, at the gates they lay, and there had sight and sorrowed out the day. But godlike Priam from the chariot rose. Forbear, he cried, this violence of woes. First to the palace let the car proceed, then pour your boundless sorrows o'er the dead. The waves of people at his word divide. Slow rolls the chariot through the following tide. Even to the palace the sad pomp they wait. They weep and place him on the bed of state. A melancholy choir attend around, with plaintive sighs, and music's solemn sound. Alternately they sing alternate flow, the obedient tears, melodious in their woe, while deeper sorrows groan from each full heart, and nature speaks at every pause of art. First to the course the weeping consort flew, around his neck her milk-white arms she threw, and "Oh, my Hector! Oh, my lord!" she cries, "snatched in thy bloom from these desiring eyes, thou to the dismal realms forever gone, and I abandoned, desolate, alone, an only son, once comfort of our pains, sad product now of hapless love, remains, never to manly age that sun shall rise, or with increasing graces glad my eyes. For Iliad now, her great defender slain, shall sink a smoking ruin on the plain, who now protects her wives with guardian care, who saves her infants from the rage of war. Now hostile fleets must waft those infants o'er, those wives must wait them, to a foreign shore. Thou too, my son, to barbarous climes shall go, the sad companion of thy mother's woe, driven hence a slave before the victor's sword, condemned to toil for some inhuman lord, or else some Greek whose father pressed the plain, or son or brother by great Hector slain. In Hector's blood his vengeance shall enjoy, and hurl thee headlong from the towers of Troy. 297. For thy stern father never spared a foe, thence all these tears, and all this scene of woe. Thence many evils his sad parents bore, his parents many, but his consort more. Why gav'st thou not to me thy dying hand? And why received not I thy last command? Some word thou wouldst have spoke, which, sadly dear, my soul might keep, or utter with a tear, which never, never could be lost in air, fixed in my heart, and oft repeated there. Thus to her weeping maids she makes her moan. Her weeping handmaids echo groan for groan. The mournful mother next sustains her part. O thou, the best, the dearest to my heart, of all my race thou most by heaven approved, and by the immortals even in death beloved, while all my other sons in barbarous bands, Achilles bound and sold to foreign lands, this felt no chains, but when a glorious ghost, free and a hero to the Stygian coast, sentenced, 'tis true, by his inhuman doom, thy noble corse was dragged around the tomb of him thy warlike arm had slain. Winky face, ungenerous insult, impotent and vain, yet glow'st thou fresh with every living grace, no mark of pain or violence of face, rosy and fair as Phoebus' silver bow, dismissed thee gently to the shades below. Thus spoke the dame and melted into tears. Sad Helen next in pomp of grief appears, fast from the shining sluices of her eyes fall the round crystal drops, while thus she cries, Ah, dearest friend, in whom the gods had joined. 298. The mildest manners with the bravest mind, now twice 10 years, unhappy years, are o'er, since Paris brought me to the Trojan shore. Oh, had I perished ere that form divine seduced this soft, this easy heart of mine, yet was it ne'er my fate from thee to find a deed ungentle, or a word unkind. When others cursed the authoress of their woe, thy pity checked my sorrows in their flow. If some proud brother eyed me with disdain, or scornful sister with her sweeping train, thy gentle accents softened all my pain. For thee I mourn, and mourn myself in thee, the wretched source of all this misery. The fate I caused, for ever I bemoan. Sad Helen has no friend, now thou art gone. Through Troy's wide streets abandoned shall I roam. In Troy deserted, as abhorred at home. So spoke the fair with sorrow-streaming eye. Distressful beauty melts each stander-by. On all around the infectious sorrow grows. But Priam checked the torrent as it rose. Perform, ye Trojans, what the rites require, and fell the forests for a funeral pyre. 12 days, nor foes nor secret ambush dread. Achilles grants these honors to the dead. He spoke, and at his word the Trojan train, their mules and oxen harnessed to the wain, pour through the gates, and felled from Ida's crown, roll back the gathered forests to the town. These toils continue 9 succeeding days, and high in air a sylvan structure raise. But when the 10th fair morn began to shine, forth to the pile was borne the man divine, and placed aloft, while all with streaming eyes beheld the flames and rolling smokes arise. Soon as Aurora, daughter of the dawn, with rosy luster streaked the dewy lawn, again the mournful crowds surround the pyre, and quench with wine the yet remaining fire. The snowy bones his friends and brothers place, with tears collected, in a golden vase. The golden vase in purple palls they rolled, of softest texture, and inwrought with gold. Last o'er the urn the sacred earth they spread, and raised the tomb, memorial of the dead. Strong guards and spies, till all the rites were done, watched from the rising to the setting sun. All Troy then moves to Priam's court again, a solemn, silent, melancholy train. Assembled there, from pious toil they rest, and sadly shared the last sepulchral feast. Such honors Iliad to her hero paid, and peaceful slept the mighty Hector's shade.